Okay, so before we get started putting the seals and clips and everything back inside the fork tube, I wanted to kind of show you what you get. We offer the fork and seal bushing kit. It's directly from Marzocchi, which is the company that makes the forks for Victory, so it's an actual kit. It's not some aftermarket. The one thing that's always confusing is when you see on the websites, the different forums and that, people talk about, do I need one kit or do I need two kits? Our kit comes complete to do both sets of forks. So you get the seals, bushings, and everything you need to do both forks all in one kit. So to answer that question, you need one kit, not two, if you buy it through us. That's how we do it. So what you basically get in that kit is you get the dust seal. This is the seal that's towards the bottom of the fork. And I'll kind of show you now, so when I'm putting it together you can see it has a left and right. You know, it has you got to put it in the right way. This spring here, that wants to go towards the ground. So when you put everything together, and I'll show you when we start assembling, but the spring goes towards the bottom, towards the ground. The next thing is the clip, and that you're going to use your old one. They don't give you a new clip, so that's why it's important when you take it apart not to bend it all up, because you're going to reuse that. They give you the fork seal, which is, this is actually the seal that when you start leaking fork oil, this is what is leaking. A lot of people think it's the dust seal because that's what they see. That's not necessarily the case. This is the seal that's leaking. And also, it's a little bit hard to see, but when you put this in, you're going to see one side is flat. I don't know if you can kind of see it that way. It's flat. The flat side you have to put in correct. The other side kind of has a little lip in here. There's a little bit of a shoulder. And again, I'll try to get it close here so you can see that right here. There's a little bit of a shoulder. This side goes towards the top of the bike. So the flat side goes towards the bottom. So it's kind of important when you put stuff back together, you want to do that correctly, because if you don't, you have to tear everything back apart. The next thing that goes in is your washer. And again, this you're going to reuse your old one, so make sure you don't damage it. And you have two bushings. You have the bushing that goes in the lower part of the fork tube, and this bushing goes at the top part of the fork tube. One thing you'll notice on both of these, they're spread apart. They have a little slit there and a little slit there. When you go to slide these on, you don't want to pull this open and bend it too far. If you bend it too far, it's going to be really hard to put back together. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure, like this one, it's a nice and tight, that gap is nice and tight. So be very careful when you put those on, because they're kind of springy. You don't want to, you can see, you can kind of pull them apart. You don't want to bend that and get it too far out of whack. So that's basically what you get in a seal kit. You get both pieces. The other thing you get in the kit is, if you remember on the bottom, when we took that bolt out of the bottom of the forks, there was a little gasket down there, just a little gasket here. You get new ones of those, so don't leave the other one in there. Make sure you take it out, because if it's in there, you could get a chance to leak from putting double gaskets in. So you also get the other gaskets with the kit too. So okay, let me show you the next step to do putting it on the forks. Okay, so the forks we're doing, like I said before, are hammer forks. These ones are actually off the Kingpin, but a hammer, basically the same thing. This is our, I said we were sending them out for machining. This is our powder coating service and the machining service we offer. These particular forks are for like I said, Kingpin, but it's the powder coating's a custom, like a pearlescent orange, and then we machine the slots in there for the customer. That's what he wanted. The upper fork tube, this is what we do with that. Same thing, same orange powder coat. We machine the slots in there, so that it's really a custom look. The other way some companies do it, and we offer it as well, but we have fork tube covers that go over them. Just a different way to do it. This is a little cleaner because it isn't bulky, but we have different designs and stuff. You can see them on the website, but that's basically what we're doing and why we're rebuilding these forks. So this is one of these jobs that's sometimes easier if you have a helper, and this is one of those jobs, but we don't all have helpers. So what I'm going to show you here is we're just going to put this fork tube in the vise. So what I got is I just have a vise. I put a rag in it to kind of protect this. You don't want to scratch this up. So you just put that in your vise. Tighten it up. Now they're going to tell you can't do this, but you can. Just don't crush it. Just put it in there tight enough so that it holds. You don't want to go overboard. So again, just enough so it holds. Now, I'll show you this end because this is where we're going to start. Just a little tip that I have. You want to make sure everything's clean. So inside the tube here, make sure that's clean. Inside the end of the fork tube, this is the bottom end. This is where your bushings, your bearing, or not your bearing, but your bushing and your seals. That's where everything's going to go. The one thing you can see, and I'll show you now because when it's all together you can't see it, but there's this groove right here. If you see this groove, that's where the snap ring is going to go. That's where this snap ring is going to go when we put everything back together. Your bushing's going to go up in there, so this part here is going to go up in there. Then your washer, your seal is going to go in there, your snap ring, and that's all going to be together. So I'll show you it now, like I said, because when it's all on there, it's kind of hard to see. But that groove is where that snap ring has to go into. So when I'm telling you later on, make sure it snaps in. That's what I'm talking about, that groove right there. Again, make sure this is all nice and clean. Make sure there's no junk inside. If we machined it, we clean them out. But you got to do the final rinse off. So make sure that's clean. Make sure, again, this is clean. So the little tip of the day is spray this with some brake clean and get that nice and clean. This right here is a very sharp edge. Right here and right here are sharp edges. So what will happen is if you try to push, we have to slide the seals and everything on. If you try to push it over that sharp edge, you can risk tearing the seal, and then you won't know until you put it all together, and then it leaks. You have to start all over again. So take 2 seconds, take a piece of masking tape or duct tape or whatever you got. I just got some electrical tape here. Put that around there. So that'll protect that edge. And then you want to take some WD-40 or whatever. I have some silicone here. Just kind of put a little smear on there to get that slippery. So now you're going to put your seals on. Like I said, this is your dust seal goes on first. You got the spring facing towards the bottom. So just kind of slip it on and you'll see it goes right over that. You would see if that tape wasn't there, you'd be fighting that seal to try to get it over top of that. So just push that seal on. Next thing's your snap ring. You can just put that on next. Next thing you want to do is your fork seal. And remember, the flat side here goes towards the bottom. So you can put that on. Slide that right over. Slide it down. Then you're going to put your washer. Depending on how much tape you have here, that washer might not go. So don't build this up with a ton of tape because you won't get that washer on. Slide the washer on. Now the next thing I like to do is take the tape off, because that's basically the part you have to worry about. Take the tape off. You're going to take your bushing, just slide it on. It'll go right on. You don't have to monkey with spreading this. Slide that on. Now the last thing is this bushing. Now this slot right here is where that bushing is going to go. So you just spread it just enough. You can see I'm barely spreading this gap here. Just spread it just enough and get it on, and you'll hear it snap. Hear that snap? That means it's in place. So that means everything's good there. Now, next thing I like to do is again, put a little WD-40 or something on there. You can take the fork oil that you're going to use. You can take some fork oil and smear it on there just to get that lubed up a little bit. Now, you're going to want to take your fork tube and slide it on. And you want to be very careful, because if you do it too hard or you shove it, you're going to push this copper bush, you're going to push that right off, and it's going to slide down and you're not going to know it. So you want to do it very careful. Just kind of put it, kind of twist a little bit, and you can feel it. It's kind of a feel thing. Just work and slide it on. I'll pull it back off just to show you. It's still in its same place. So if you push too hard and you try to shove it, you're going to knock that off and you're going to have a real pain. Just like I say, kind of wobble that around a little bit and twist it, and it'll go right on. So that's that step. We have everything now is all on the fork tube. Everything's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you here best I can with the camera angle to show you how to do this stuff. Like I said, we got everything already put on there. Everything's in line. One thing I made, and I know they make a tool called a seal driver. or seal installer, bushing driver. There's a bunch of different names. It goes on here and it slides down and it pushes all that stuff in. Last I knew, the tool was pretty expensive, so you can kind of do it without it. I will probably in the next couple weeks actually make a tool and maybe offer it with the seal kits or offer it separately, but I kind of made a very generic one up here. This is just simply an old piece of exhaust pipe I had. What it is, I just cut a piece off and cut it in half. So what it'll do is you're going to put it on here like this and you're going to slide it down and push the stuff in. So I got the camera zoomed in here so you can kind of see, but I'm going to put that bushing, just kind of get it going down inside there a little bit. Just trying to get it, the washer, and then your seal. And again, make sure you have that seal on the right way. You want to just kind of jiggle the tube around a little bit until you kind of get that seal seated in. I'll try to back the camera up here a little bit so you can see a little bit better. You want to just take your driver tool here, and it's really kind of hard to do like this. This is where you need another person to kind of help you hold that. You see how that everything just went right in? If you were to use a screwdriver, if you were to take a screwdriver and try to punch all the way around, if you had like a flat end punch, you could try to push all the way around, but it's not as easy as just making something like that. They do tell me PVC pipe works too. Can't say as if I agree or disagree with that. I looked for a piece of PVC pipe and I didn't really see anything that fit. So this, like I say, this tool I just made up took me 2 seconds to make this. It really needs to have a little bit better. It needs to have something for me to hit against on here. So just keep turning this. And again, if you had a helper, you could turn it while you're hitting this. And you just want to kind of work that seal down. And then if you remember that slot that I told you about, now that everything's kind of in there, I'm going to take that punch I'm going to take my punch here and kind of tap that down in. You don't want to go too hard, because if you go too far or too hard and you put a hole in that seal, you're screwed. That's why, like I say, I think I'm going to offer a tool for this. See what we can come up with that's affordable. Definitely wish I had another person here to help me do this. There, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more. Now, like I say, it's hard to see, but you want to look down inside here to where that snap ring will go in. And once you see that groove, you know everything's okay. There we go. Now make sure that you spin this when you're doing it. You know, don't just look at one side. Make sure you spin it and you can see that groove all the way around. Take your clip, put it in there, and you need to take a little screwdriver and just kind of push it. You'll hear it. You hear it snap? Snaps down in. Make sure it's in that groove all the way around. Again, turn this, look down in there, make sure it's seated in there. The last thing you're going to do, is you're going to slide up your dust seal, and it just pushes in with your fingers. Real easy. And again, kind of turn it when you're doing it. Turn the tube a little bit. You may need to just tap it just a hair to make sure it seats in. Nothing, you don't want to use any force at all on that. So that's basically all there is to it, putting those on. This should move nice and free. You don't want to have any kind of binding or anything. Everything should just move nice and free. So that's basically all there is to that. Next thing, we'll show you the top part. Okay, now we're getting ready to install the dampening rod. So this whole big piece here. First thing you want to do, make sure you clean it up. Brake clean it real good. Clean it, spray brake clean on it. Wash it up real good. Make sure there's no dirt, no dust, all that kind of stuff. Make sure everything looks okay. The one thing a lot of places will tell you is you have to unscrew this. If you unscrew that, the spring's going to come off and you're going to have a nightmare. It's going to be really hard to do. So we don't do it that way. This is how we took it off. The same thing. We unbolt. This is the end I showed you before. You unbolt that. This is the cap that's up in the top of your triple trees. You see one thing on here? There's an O-ring up here. This O-ring, you get a new one in the kit. So just kind of hook a screwdriver under there. Pull that O-ring off. Maybe brake clean it if there's any dirt, anything under there. And they give you a new O-ring. New O-ring in the kit, so just put that new O-ring on. Just snaps down around there, real easy. So what you're going to want to do, and again, make sure the top of your tube is clean. You should have already done that, but just double check in case you didn't. Just going to slide this in. And again, this is where it's good to have some help. But you're just going to slide that in, and you'll feel it. You kind of got to wobble it around in that, and you'll feel it go in. So once you get it in there, the next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to put the bolt in. So I'm going to loosen this up in the vise. And we are going to set that down. And you're going to want to slide the upper tube down. That way that'll get this rod so it'll go all the way down in the bottom. So what we're going to do, since that rod's all the way in the bottom, you're going to take your bolt, that little bolt, make sure you clean it. Make sure there's no grit or grime or anything on it. Clean that off. And then put your new little sealing gasket on there. And you're just going to put the bolt, and it's kind of tough because it just barely makes it through that hole. You're going to put that in there. And hold the top of the dampening rod up where that spring was and just screw your bolt in. Now you want to get it, snug. You can't really go overboard on it right now, but just get it snug so that the fluid doesn't leak out. Now that you've done that, the rod is actually all attached now, so it'll go up and down. And you should feel some resistance when you're pulling it out, kind of like some like suction. It shouldn't come out real easy. You should kind of feel some suction in there a little bit. So that's that step. Next thing we're going to do is we're just going to pour the fork oil in here. Now you have to look at your service manual and see how many cc's your bike takes. And the one trick to the fork oil, you'll see again on the forums, guys are saying, well, they use 5 weight, 7 weight, 10 weight, 15 weight, whatever. What that does is the viscosity of the oil, the thicker the oil, the stiffer the ride will be. So if you want to experiment a little bit and say the bike takes 10 weight, factory recommends 10 weight. If you put 15 weight in there, the front end will be more stiff. So you can experiment. If you're more aggressive or rider, you can experiment with that, and that's all you got to do. And again, to experiment, when it's on the bike, you can just take this bolt out in the bottom. It'll drain out all the oil, loosen the top, or the top will be loose, so that just kind of let the oil drain out overnight, and then put the bolt back in the morning, fill the forks up with a different weight oil, and that should make it at least enough difference so you can see if you like it or not. You don't have to tear the seals apart and all that kind of stuff just to change the fork oil. So that's basically that step. So the next thing we're going to do is put the fork oil in, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now we're ready to start putting the fork oil in. So what you want to do is just kind of stand the fork up on the floor. We have the top, unscrewed a little bit. You don't have to take this cap off. If you take that off and the spring and all this stuff in here out, you're going to have a mess. That spring's really strong in there, so you don't want to monkey with any of that stuff. So just loosen that up. Pull this down a little bit, and you're going to pour the fork oil right in there. So what we have is, you can use Victory fork oil, you can use different brands. A quart of it should run you anywhere in the $10 to $15 range for a quart of the oil. You'll see the guys in the forums talking about different viscosities, different weights that they use, 5 weight, 10 weight, 15 weight. Most Victories take 10 weight. And the theory there is if you want a stiffer suspension, you want something more, you're a more aggressive rider, you want something stiffer, you're going to want to go with a thicker oil, like a 15 weight. That'll make the front end a little bit stiffer. But that's totally up to you. You can experiment with it or talk to other guys, but we're going with the 10 weight. The other thing you want to do is look in your owner's manual or your service manual and get how many cc's you need to put in each fork. This particular bike takes 470 milliliters for the amount of oil. So what you do is we just kind of, like I said, loosen that up. I got a cup, we measured it out. So what you're going to do is I just kind of take the fork and tip it back just a hair to get the angle a little bit better. And you're just going to want to just pour it in there. Just go slow. And this would be the time that if you didn't put that gasket on that bolt in the very bottom, you're going to see the oil start coming out. But there's no really trick to doing this. Just like I say, I just tip the fork back a little bit so that it's easier to pour. Okay, and once you get it all in there, just slide your tube up and start screwing your cap on. Then this particular one takes a 19 millimeter. So just screw that cap all the way on. It's not hard, it goes on pretty easy. Just get it snug, nothing crazy. And that's basically all there is to it. When you go to push down, you should have some resistance to it. Like a shock absorber in a car. That's all there is to it. Make sure nothing's leaking. You want to maybe double check the bolt. You want to double check this bolt in the bottom here and make sure it's tight. Make sure you don't have any leaks and you're good to go. So the next step would be putting the fork itself into the bike. Okay, so earlier I showed you guys how to take the forks out. Now I'm going to show you how to put it back in. The one thing that I'm not sure if I showed you before, but what you want to see is this crack right here, this slot, there's one there, and the slot right here. We're going to spread those apart to get the forks to go in. Now, you don't want to spread them apart crazy, just kind of be just enough type thing. And this is another deal where if you have a helper, it makes a big difference, because you want to put, you want to spread the one and spread the other one kind of at the same time. So a helper, you don't have enough hands to do that. What I have is I just have an old gasket scraper that I use. You can use a regular flat blade screwdriver. So whatever fits in there, but that's what you want to do. So you want to just kind of stick that in there. And what you're doing is you're just taking and wedging that. You're opening up this hole. You're opening it up so the tube will go right in there. So you just want to take your tube, slide it in there, and on these, since we powder coated them, we have to be careful. But you just want to spread that apart, and you'll see it'll go right up in. Do the same thing on the top, spread that apart, and once you hear it bottom out just like that, that clunk, that means they're in all the way. So that's really all there is to it on that. You want to then put your bolts back in the clamps. And again, these are a 6mm Allen socket. So you just want to put them in there. And again, check service manual and see what it says for torque. Just get them snugged up. Nothing will fall out. You know, you don't have to put the bolts in right away. The fork tubes won't fall out because they're clamped in there. So that's basically it. What you're going to do is you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And that is all there is to rebuilding a set of forks. Again, this bike was a kingpin. Hammer's basically the same thing. So if you have a hammer, you can do the same thing. So thanks for watching.